let's start here today. What an open invitation. I love a bit of participation. What is Easter all about? Not a trick question. Resurrection. What else? New life. There's a name attached to it as well. Jesus. There we go. It's about Jesus. But we would also say it's about a few other things as well. Easter bunny. Those wonderful pictures that come around. Terrified child of an Easter bunny. I mean, as a child, it makes sense. You're only yay high, and bunnies are only typically smaller than you, and suddenly you're met with a massive one, and you're like, this is Easter? This is Easter. Mahusive, English word, thank you very much. There'll be many more words that will come into your vocabulary after today. Let's say Mahusive, yeah, that's great. Painting eggs, or let's be honest, painting potatoes. How expensive are eggs right now? Like, we love the tradition of painting eggs, but now we're kind of like, as parents, right, trying to make it by. Can we change the egg and make it a potato? Because I feel like that would do so much better right now. Or third and final, Easter meals. How many love a good Easter meal? Come on. And so I'm already tempting you, and you're like, Jonny, can we wrap this thing up real quick? The mothers in the room, the men and women in the room who are good cooks are like preparing and slaving. So thank you for all you do. But we know that, yes, Jesus is, and yes, some of these things are also part of the Easter message. But honestly, we leave this place, we leave these events, we leave all this moment leaving empty. There's a reality that actually you walking out of this Sunday experience, hearing maybe some nice music, maybe having some nice coffee, some food, and eating with family, you will almost step out of this building, out of a home, and exhale and still be looking for more. You'll still be looking for more. There is something of an ache inside of us that we can't get no satisfaction, that we still haven't found what we're looking for. There are realities within us. And even though we've had this kind of full weekend, even as a church, we may walk out of this building and say, there must be more. And I wonder if we've really missed what Easter is actually all about. I wonder if we've missed what actually Easter is all about. Paul will nail it down to this message. He'll say this in 1 Corinthians 15:14. And if Christ has been raised, our preaching, have not been raised, our preaching is useless, and so is our faith. Paul says the whole Easter message, as it was proclaimed, resurrection is the whole thing that this is about today. The resurrection of Jesus Christ. Paul banked everything on a resurrected Jesus. Not Jesus being a nice dead guy, liked his values, loved his anarchy, kind of like stick it to the government kind of style, gave his life for it. No, Jesus, Paul, and all the followers of Jesus gave their lives because of this reality that resurrection life is both true and real. It's not just a good idea, but I would say it's true. I never forget when I came into the ministry, or just before I was going into the ministry, so over a decade now, I actually sold cars at John Sisson Nissan for a couple of months. Yeah, you're welcome. And I was there for a couple of months, and I was speaking to my manager outside, and he was like, do you really want to do this? Like, do you really want this? Do you really believe all of this? Yeah, I get Jesus loving your enemy, turning your other cheek. Like, I love what Jesus is about. But do you actually believe this? Like, you're going to give up all of this to go do that? Do you really believe that it's like true? Like, I get there's a truth out there and good for you with your truth. But what you're saying, this is true that you would give your life to this. And I would say emphatically, yes. True is like saying there is definitely gravity in the room, right? If I drop any of these gravity in the room, right? Objects, we would agree, true, that it would hit the floor. We would like true as well to be when we go to the bank and we check our bank balance. We don't want the bank to say, I love your truth, but we've got a different truth and your statement says that. And maybe you do live that way. I swear I've got more in my account than what it says on that balance. But we want that to be true. Maybe for you, when you step on the scales, it's like that moment of where you look at the reality and you're like, that can't be true. That can't be true. That's not true. And in fact, it is true. Because this is what all the gospel writers are getting at. The resurrection of Jesus is true. And this is the foundation to what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And so, if it's true, if the resurrection isn't true, religion is a terrible hobby to have. If the resurrection isn't true, it really is a terrible hobby to pick up every Sunday, give your life to. And so there must be something to a true reality. And I want to explore that today. I want to explore one thing of why the resurrection is true today. That actually it's something to give your life to today. And so if you've got your Bibles, or turn your phone on your Bible, I encourage you to bring Bibles to church. It's a wonderful thing. One, you can test to see if I'm actually saying is true, it's in the Bible or not. But also, we believe that the Spirit speaks to us. And so we'd love for you to join in reading us today. And so we're in Luke chapter 24. You've got the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the 4 gospel writers. These guys are giving an account of 4 viewpoints of what is true. Can you imagine that this reality is true because so many different writers gave their testimony? In fact, Luke was emphatic at the beginning of his gospel, of his letter, saying, this is true. I'm a doctor. And I've done the research, I've done the detailed accounts of all these things that you have witnessed. And I want you to know this is true. I think about another reality about this being true. How many of you have brothers and sisters? Right? James was a brother of Jesus and did not believe that he was the Messiah until after the resurrection. Now, how much would it for you to believe your brother was actually God? How much would it take for you to believe that your brother was God? A lot, right? So there's something of validity within the scripture that James, a brother of Jesus, would write a letter with conviction that Jesus is Lord. So we've got these testimonies of people that have given eyewitness account of this truth that is true about what it means for the resurrection life. And so we jump in just at verses 1 to 3 of 24, and it says, while they were wondering about this, no, sorry, wrong slide. This one. On the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they entered, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. So context, this is Resurrection Sunday. This is the first day of the week. Luke is implying there is a new beginning coming. And these women that have turned up, we read later in the verses, are Mary Magdalene, Joanna, and Mary, the mother of James, and other women. These women are coming with an expectation that Jesus has died, that this life that they had once thought was going to happen had completely crumbled. And I want you to put yourself in Mary's shoes today, Mary Magdalene specifically. We know about her account from Luke that she was someone who was demon-possessed. She was someone who was oppressed spiritually, and that might have looked like physical illness, mental illness, someone who was sick beyond sick, who could not function, who was unable to be able to do life. And she had an encounter with Jesus Christ, and everything changed. Suddenly the lights were on, healing, clarity, a healing of body came, and she said, this has to be true. I'm going to follow this. Even the every disciple saw miracles, feeding of the 5,000, Jesus walking on water. Some of the disciples even saw Jesus become like God. There are these amazing encounters over and over again, and his teachings about a new family, that we didn't need to worry anymore, that the sparrows were being taken care of, you're taken care of. This love and acceptance of so many different voices coming together as one. This was too good to be true. And as this was building more and more, it came to the crucifixion. And they saw the Messiah crucified. Have you ever had that moment where you've banked everything on something and it completely collapsed? Have you ever had that moment where you bet your whole thoughts that this is what I'm going to do, this is who I'm going to be, this is who I'm going to marry, this is who I'm going to be with, this is the life I'm going to lead, and suddenly it crumbled? Jesus' death was just another affirmation to them that the empire, the machine of the world, crushes good things. The things that I think are going to happen, the world just seems to always crush. This is just the way of the world. And you imagine Mary and the other disciples just accepting. Crucifixion was nothing abnormal to them. Hundreds of people would be crucified every single day. They would see it all around, reminded that Rome has oppressed. The good things in this world cannot happen. And so let's just keep on living life. Has something you've trusted been so true but then taken away? And I would give language to this, that we all experience empty spaces. Things that once were. Hopes and dreams of one day a job opportunity, that career path that suddenly derailed. Those friends that you thought were going to be there forever are now no longer. That relationship, that marriage that you thought was going to be so good is now breaking apart. The hopes and dreams for your children as you're navigating parenthood and it's harder than you thought it could ever be. You didn't realize this pressure would be upon you. And now you're starting to crumble and wonder, is it ever going to be like I thought it was going to be? And actually, I think we live in these empty spaces. Things that I wish were like. Things that I hoped would be. Maybe it's a health diagnosis. Like I'm turning 40 next week. And 39, but 39 has been the roughest year ever. You know those like reels of like when you're packing and you've got all your supplements you're taking to make yourself feel normal? Like I didn't have to do any of that. And now suddenly if I don't get a good night's sleep or if I sneeze too hard, it's like the neck starts to go. And I thought, man, I'm just going to live and everything's just going to get better. You know, there's realities that come crashing into our worlds that we believe we're just going to have the best day ever, forever, until we don't. It looks like for me and Rach, we've had 3 miscarriages. We've had both our daughters have seizures. We didn't think that would ever happen. And suddenly the life that we thought suddenly becomes an empty space. We suddenly thought this was, but now it might not be. And so emptiness fills that space. The questions of, and it's not really empty, right? It's got all the questions. It's got all the hopes that we keep trying to come back to that empty space. And almost like the women, they took spices. They brought spices. They brought things that might be able to bring to life or be able to bring resolution to that reality. And how many know empty spaces we never seem to resolve? There's always that question mark of why did it happen? Or maybe if I just do it this way, or maybe if I just do this one thing, it might resolve. And the spices can look like very different things for our own lives, where we try to captivate, try to make resolved the empty space. We read on in this moment, and while they were wondering about these things, like what the heck's going on? I thought I knew what was happening. I thought I was going to go see Jesus dead, but instead the empty space just creates more questions. The body's not there. Heck, I thought this was what was going to happen, and now I don't even know anymore what's going to happen. More question marks. And while they were wondering, suddenly 2 men, angels, clothed in gleamed lightning, stood beside them. And in their fright, the woman bowed down to their faces to the ground. But the men said to them this question, which is so pivotal for us this morning. Why do you look for the living among the dead? Why do you look for the living among the dead? For those who have grown up in church, we quickly answer that question. He is risen. But what if you asked yourself that question today? That actually you internalize that question. Why do I look for the living among the dead? Why do I keep trying to keep hope in this one thing? Why do I keep on trying to keep this reality alive? Why do I keep seeking my acceptance, my hopes, desires in things that just keep on letting me down, that don't sustain me, that don't bring life. Yes, the Easter Bunny's great. Yes, Easter egg hunts and painting stones and what stones? Eggs, could be stones. Meals, the whole things that we go about doing, the way that we try and look impressive to other people. All those things are just so empty. And the question is, why do you keep looking for the living things among dead things? Why do you keep trying to sustain your own life? Why do I look for hope or fulfillment in my job, in my relationships, my ambitions, status? People thinking well of me. Why do I cling to what once was? And we'll keep revisiting those spaces. But I think it's really interesting that Jesus wasn't in the tomb when he resurrected. Like for me, I kind of want to make it easy for people. I'm going to stand outside the tomb at least and say, hey guys, no worries, it's going to be all good, going to change this whole thing up. Not going to be quite what you think. But instead, Jesus plays hide and seek. He decides, I'm not going to be in the tomb. In fact, I'm going to leave all the question marks for them. I'm not even going to answer. I'm going to leave some little Easter eggs, pun intended. I'm going to leave some little things around. I'm going to leave some things around, but I'm not actually going to appear until later. And I think this is the reality, that the resurrection journey is about letting go. Actually, the first step for us to resurrect is to actually understand that the things you are looking for are dead and actually letting go of them. Actually saying, you know what, to experience resurrection life, I need to let go. I need to trust in something different. The cross wasn't so much about Jesus being resistant against the things of this world. In fact, it was more about him letting go and releasing. Into your hands, Father, I release my life, my soul. Naturally, the cross talks about a man, fully God, fully man, releasing his life so that a resurrection can happen. That actually the journey for Mary was to let go of the tomb. To let go, revisiting the tomb, of just trying to commemorate. Actually letting go of those things which are dead and saying, I'm going to go on my way to something new. This question of why do you look for the living among the dead is actually a question that invites us to see emptiness not as an end point, but actually a doorway for something new. The emptiness is not the end. And so if you are empty today, you've got good news. There is a doorway to new life today. That's what the resurrection is telling us. In fact, I love this from Frederick Bruner, who says this: resurrection shows that the worst thing is never the last thing. That's good news today. The emptiness you're experiencing, you feel like it's the end, you feel like it's the last thing. It's never. It's never the last thing. The worst thing in your world right now is not the worst thing. And I want you to lean into that emptiness today, because the world says, cover your things in spices. Don't think about it. Distract yourself. The gospel says, look at your emptiness. Ask the question. Don't suppress it. But actually, there is an invitation that the worst thing you're experiencing today is not going to be the last thing. There is new life on the other side. And so the story continues. I want to jump a couple of verses to verse 36 today. In verse 36, Jesus appears. Now, there's a lot of people letting go. There's a road to Emmaus where these two people are journeying to Emmaus. They've let go of their hopes. They had hoped that Jesus was a prophet. They had hoped these things, but actually there was a shift and change that Jesus brought in their worlds. And again, Jesus does the same thing to these people. So in verse 36 it says, and they were talking, this is in the evening, and they were talking about these things, and Jesus himself stood among them and said, peace be with you. Which is so Jesus right now, in this kind of fully bodied, transient person, appearing and disappearing in different spaces, just appears in the middle of their emptiness. Their tomb, if it were, right in the middle of it. He said, peace be you. But they were startled and frightened. They thought they had seen a spirit. And they said to them, And these questions are poignant. Again, Jesus invites them into their emptiness. Why are you troubled, and why do doubts arise in your hearts? Notice Jesus invites the question. He wants your laments. He wants your pains. He wants your questions. He doesn't want you running away from these things. He says, I want to invite you into the pain of whatever you're facing, whatever emptiness you're experiencing today. I want to meet you in that space. Why are you troubled? Why do your doubts arise? And his answer to those things is, see my hands and my feet, that is, I myself, touch me and see. For a spirit does not have flesh and bones, as you see that I have. And when he had said this, he showed them again his hands and his feet. Point I want us to do. So if letting go is the reality that we've got to journey, if resurrection life's to happen, for us to know this is true today, we've got to learn to first let go. But then the second thing we've got to do is experience Jesus. Jesus didn't give an explanation of like, guys, this is what's happened. He first gave them an experience of touch. He said resurrection life starts with an experience. If I can just have a truth, Jonny, if I can just have a rationale about this empty space that I'm experiencing, I'll be fine. And I would encourage you would not. Because just reasoning things in your mind will always be unreasoned. What we need more than anything is a touch of Jesus. That we need a living, breathing Jesus that touches and says, come be with me. Jesus offers something better than just an experience, though. He offers his wounds. I love that Jesus doesn't hide his wounds. So often, the empty place we would think we're just trying to erase. Jesus, if you come and meet me right now, you'll just erase everything. And actually the gospel message says, resurrection says, that worst thing isn't the last thing. And actually the better story that Jesus is telling through our lives is that when we resurrect, when Jesus resurrects on earth, and I want to make this point clear today, that resurrection, Jesus resurrected on the earth. He didn't just ascend to heaven, this one day amazing thing. No, he resurrected on earth, which means today, it forms us today, that resurrection can happen today. That resurrection happens now. And Jesus says, my body is here now with scars, with brokenness. And I love that Jesus shows his scars to say the answer isn't just like, hey, this is the truth. I love that Jesus' first answer was, I know your suffering. I know your brokenness. Look to my scars because I've bore your pain. I know your pain and I've bore your pain. For those who have lost loved ones in your life. For those who have questions about diagnosis, of healings that haven't happened, the questions of just when is this life going to get any better, that Jesus doesn't give us some clever answer. Instead, he shows, I know. I know. I think that's the greatest answer. And through walking through some of the pain that we've walked through over these years, the greatest answer, I didn't want some clever answer from Jesus. I didn't want some one day, he said, I know. I know because I've walked through it and I've bore the sin, I've bore the brokenness. I don't have the full answer for you this side of eternity, but I have resurrection for you. I have a doorpost that says life doesn't have to be this way. Life will change. Life will transform, but will you trust me today? Will you trust me today? God loves you. And this means resurrection is not just a prayer for one day, but it's freedom now. It's not just that we celebrate today and we go on about our lives. No, the celebration continues Monday because resurrection is tomorrow and therefore on. We celebrate this day, but it is a lifestyle that we want to live. We no longer need to live bound by the things that oppress us. Those empty tombs do not need to define you anymore. The empty tomb does not need to define you today. That actually you can trust him today. And so I want to tell or have someone else tell a story today about resurrection. And I want to invite Brandy up onto the stage to share her testimony this morning. So can we welcome her here today? And so just a little backstory. Brandy has had an amazing story, a testimony. And just forewarning this morning, this is a challenging testimony. So for some of you in the room, this may be triggering. And I just want to warn you, it's a powerful testimony, but actually it could trigger you a bit this morning as well. And so just to make you aware, but what I love is that I was like, God, I really want a story to convey the true reality of resurrection. And guess what Brandy did? She's like, Jonny, I know I've been sitting on my testimony. You name the day, and I'll share the testimony. And I said, Brandy, thank you, because it's going to be this Sunday. And so we just want to hear this story of someone who has experienced an empty space, who has an empty tomb, but God is doing an amazing work in and through it. So let's welcome Brandy here.
Okay. I'm going to start at the beginning. So 13 years ago, I would have been 21 years old. I was a single mom to a 1-year-old boy, Hunter. And I got myself into a bad relationship, a lot of traumatizing things. I was terrified for my son's life and my own. Long story short, I got pregnant, and at 9 weeks, I decided to have an abortion. I felt like that was the only thing I could do. So I dealt with a lot of trauma, a lot of pain, a lot of anxiety, self-negative talk, all the things. For 13 years, I just shoved it down. So fast forward, I got married to my wonderful husband, had 2 more children, Jason and Isaac. In 2023, I gave my life to Christ, and that was a great thing. But there was always that question in the back of my head, you know, am I truly forgiven? So I'm gonna fast forward through that. In October of 2023, Michael Chilko had a prophetic word. He started out with a woman with long, red, curly hair. And he just said, you know, he touched on a relationship, a really bad relationship. And he said, there's freedom there, and it starts today. And at this time, my husband didn't know about anything. He knew about the relationship, but he didn't know about anything. So I also hid that from my husband. So when Michael had this word, I didn't say anything. I didn't want to talk about it. So I left church that day and just kind of thought about it. It came up every once in a while, like, what does he mean? There's freedom there. How is there freedom in this situation? So then 6 months goes by with God, you know, poking me about it. And this would have been in like April 2024. My husband wanted to get baptized. We were doing Alpha at church. And we were leaving Alpha one night, and I got in the truck and I just started bawling. And he says, what's wrong? And it was just like word vomit. It just all came out. Like, told him everything that happened. And is there water in my mouth? It's really dry. I'm sorry, guys. Thank you. Okay. Sorry. So he just held my hand as I told him all that, and just let me cry it out. And from that moment, things kind of got worse before they got better. It was like, you know, ripping a Band-Aid off a wound. So for, about another 6 months. Thank God my husband is the man he is, because it was an emotional roller coaster for 6 months. And just like wondering like why. I told my husband, like I thought this was what needed to happen. I told my husband, why am I still dealing with this? And then my husband ended up bringing it up to me. He reminded me of Michael Chilcote's word. And I was like, why do I need to talk to him when I have God? Why do I need another human? And so for a little while, I fought with God about it. I was not wanting to tell anybody about this, let alone at that point in time, they were kind of strangers to me. So I was like, I'm not doing that. So I finally reached out to Shannon and had asked if he would remember it, because this was over a year ago. And so long story short, we got together, we went for a walk, we prayed, and I just remember Shannon grabbing a hold of me and just holding me. And it was like, in that moment, everybody disappeared. And it was just me and Jesus standing on a road, and he was just pouring into me. And at that time, that's when I really felt forgiven. Like, I was forgiven. So after that, like, there was like a fire. I just wanted to help women with the same kind of stories. And I ended up finding a Bible study, and I was going through the Bible study, and on a day it was about God's mercy. And I won't read the whole thing, but I'll just read what I have underlined here. It says, "No one shed a tear. I didn't know Jesus then, so I didn't know there was someone who really cared and shed as many tears, if not more tears, as I did." And that made me think about a question that Jonny had asked me before about this situation, like, where was Jesus when I had my abortion? So I wrote in my journal, it says, where was Jesus when I went through my abortion? He was there, crying with me, hurting with me, just like in the garden at the fall. God knew right then and there what he needed to do to redeem that horrible moment in history. He already had a plan. I think that's how it happened with my story. He sat in that bathroom with me as I bled and cried. He hurt and cried, but had a plan. He knew exactly how he was going to redeem that. We can look at these situations in our lives and the sins and all the things in the world and have no hope. I did for 13 years. But God is working, he is moving, and he is redeeming, even when we are too hopeless and broken to realize. He is a good father, and I've heard that many times in my short walk with him. But in these moments, that makes it so real. He is a good father, far better than we can even fathom. Fix your eyes on him, and he is faithful to forgive, but not only forgive, redeem. So, I'm journaling, and I just had a thought of the woman at the well and her running into town and saying, he's told me everything I've done. That's kind of like how I feel like he has told me everything I've done. My darkest, most regretful part of my life, he was there with me. And when I remember when I first gave my life to Christ, yes, I knew he was there with me, but it was almost like he had his back turned in that moment. He didn't want to see it, but that's not true. He was there. He grieved with me, not just for the life of my unborn child, but also for me. And that's the beauty of it. He just, no matter what your most horrible, most darkest, most coldest moment of your life is, he was there and still is there.
Thank you so much, Wendy.
So good. So good.
Yeah, take a moment. Thank you, Brandy. This is what resurrection is all about. And just the boldness of you, Brandy. You are a true testament of courage. And that's the healing that we're all looking for, right? We're looking for the spaces which we don't want to talk about. We're looking for the spaces that are empty. And Jesus is saying, let go, because I want to show you my wounds. The greatest truth that you can hear today is that Jesus has suffered all and knows all. And he sits with you and says, I've got scars. I'm not a God that's aloof. I'm a God that sits with you. I come into your brokenness today. Jesus' scars remind us that resurrection doesn't mean pretending we were never wounded. It means that those very wounds become proof of God's power to bring life out of death. That's the truth. And so Easter means nothing is impossible with God. Life triumphs over death. Love triumphs over hatred. Hope triumphs over despair. The suffering does not have the last word. And if you're suffering right now, it does not have to have the last word. That there is a reality of wholeness. And so I just want to invite the worship team up today as we close out this morning. And I want you to ask the question for yourself again. Where are you looking for the living among the dead? Where are you trying to keep dead things alive? Where are you even hiding your empty tombs that Jesus wants to come and meet you today? So as we began the service, would you just bow your heads with me? And I just want you just to take a moment of just reflection here this morning. Where are you troubled? Where are your doubts? Hear Jesus come into the room right now, into your heart, into your very being. And he's right in front of you asking those questions today. Where are you troubled? Where are your doubts? What is the empty grave that you need transformed today? Because Jesus wants to touch the brokenness of your life. Jesus wants to touch the empty space and say, let go. I am risen. I'm not here in this space anymore. You don't need to hold on. You don't need to keep trying to manufacture, trying to spice, trying to keep it alive. There's something better that Jesus has for you today. He wants you to let go so that you can experience the healing touch of a Savior that shows his wounds.